If you run a family company and you're a dad that has kids in the business, I got a message for you. Dad, don't do this with your company. Okay, I want to have a conversation with dads that run and own a company. Let's say we've got a guy, a really nice guy, and his name is Sven. And Sven has a company called Sven's Fish Company. And when Sven got out of high school, he falls in love with Helga. And Helga, she's beautiful, beautiful Norwegian woman. And they just fall in love and get married. And guess what? They start having kids. And they have Lars is their first kid. And then they have Ole as their second kid. And then they have Marta, daughter. They finally got a daughter, and they thought, you know what, we're going to try one more time, and we're going to have another daughter, hopefully. And sure enough, they have Liz. 4 kids. And, you know, in every family, the kids are different. But Lars is running and operating this company. The kids start becoming adults. And Lars wants the kids to come into the business. But the diversity of the kids, it's a big deal. So Lars goes and he gets his MBA, and he's been trained in leadership, and he's just class. Lars is class. He's a top-notch guy. Has all sorts of opportunity to grow, and no matter where he went to work, Lars has huge, huge potential. So Lars, boom, he's in the company. So Ole comes along, and Ole's not like Lars. Ole's, Ole is kind of lazy. He just doesn't put out the effort. He doesn't go to college or get any professional education of any kind. And mom and dad are worried about Ole. They're wondering if Ole's going to work out, if he's going to make it out. So guess what? They give Ole a job. But Ole comes in kind of late, and he leaves kind of early. And Ole, he doesn't take care of himself. You know, he eats too much. He drinks too much. He just kind of comes along. And, you know, Ole, there's no question he's easily replaceable. But mommy and daddy love Ole, and they want Ole to be taken care of. So they put Ole in the business somehow, and they give him a job. But everybody knows that Ole's easily replaceable. But everybody loves Ole. So Ole's on the payroll, right? Okay, so we've got Marta here, and Marta, she's pretty sharp. And she goes to college, and she gets a finance degree, and she's strong in accounting, and they decide to put her, they started her out as bookkeeping, and she works her way up into being a CFO. Now, Marta's not as charismatic as Ole. She doesn't have any interest in being in the limelight and running and operating key parts of the business. She just wants to do the numbers and do the accounting. So Marta's in the business. Now we get to Liz. Now, Liz wants nothing to do with this company. As a matter of fact, she falls in love, and she falls in love with Franz. And guess what? Franz is a farmer, and Franz lives out into the countryside. He doesn't want to be around the shipyards or the fish yards, and Franz just, you know, he's a high-quality guy. Everybody loves Franz, and Liz just wants to have grandbabies. So Liz falls in love with Franz, and they end up having babies, and they're just doing great. But she is not going to work with Lars. She's not going to work with Ole. She's not going to work with Marta. She's going to just have her own family and do her own thing. Now, what's driving mom and dad with all of this, having all these kids in the business? Well, the first thing is love, right? Mom and dad love them all. They want to give them all opportunity. but there's also fear. Mom and dad are saying, look, I don't know what's going to happen with these kids, especially Oli. So rather than having Oli wander about in life, we're going to put Oli on the payroll. They also have fear that if they don't offer stock to all of the kids, they're gonna feel like the kids don't feel loved, and they're very worried about being fair. They're really worried about being fair. So, you know what they do? They give them all stock. Sven and Helga, they're tired of working. They're ready to retire. They've got enough assets put aside from all the fish they've sold over the years, and they decide to retire, and they give each one of the kids stock in the company because they want to be fair, right? They love them all. So all four of them get 25% of the company. They each own a piece of stock. Mom and dad are just so happy that they've shown love. They're just so happy that they've been fair to everybody. What could be wrong now? What could go bad? Well, there's a couple of things. You see, Sven's Fish Company is a very profitable company. They did a really good job building this company up. Lars has been just working his fanny off, making sure that this company is profitable and doing well. Oli has kind of just been there. Marta has been doing a really good job managing the finances, and Liz hasn't been paying attention at all. But each one of them own 25% of the stock because mom and dad love them all the same, and they want to be fair to all the kids. But we're looking at a situation where this company is so profitable that last year they had an extra $1 million left over for distribution to all the kids. So that means that each one of them was able to take a $250,000 bonus off the business, and everybody's hunky-dory, right? Now, I got to ask you a question. If Lars has been running and operating the company and helping really lead it and make sure it's profitable, as a matter of fact, even more profitable than it was when Sven was running it, and Marta was managing the finances and making sure that the way that this company was spending money and tying it to how they're collecting money, she's done such a great job of that it contributed. These two contributed to that $1 million. But they're having to give $250,000 to a sibling that is totally replaceable and easy to replace, and a sibling that's not even involved. What is wrong with this picture? Well, here's what's wrong with this picture. Everything stays okay as long as mom and dad are alive. But once Sven and Helga are gone, the fighting will start. Lars and Marta are going to be really resentful that $500,000 went out to siblings that are not contributing to the profitability of the company. There might be reasons that Lars and Marta want to have Oli's stock and Liz's stock brought back into the company, because there might be executives that also should be stockholders that are really key to the growth and the profitability of the company that aren't family members. There's going to be a real drive to want to have the compensation tied to performance. You know, if Lars and Marta are the ones that are making this company profitable, they're going to want most of the compensation. I don't know how many times that I've seen family-run companies where there's kids like Oli that are put on the payroll for $150,000 a year, and they virtually are worth $50,000. I've seen some situations where kids get these distributions and they don't even show up for work hardly, and yet they still get paid. There is a ton of drama that can happen as a result of having this situation built this way. In addition to this, you can have the rest of the team members watching this all go down and having disgust and disrespect for people that are involved in the company that have nothing to do with helping make it profitable. You can have such battles going on between the family that guess what? Christmas is over with. People don't get together. Thanksgiving is over with. Birthday parties that exist with children from the different siblings, they don't happen. And you completely blow up a family when you have this kind of a situation. You know, I think about Cabela's in Sydney, that when the parents died, the children couldn't get along, and it forced Cabela's to be sold, and it became part of Bass Pro Shops, and one of the Nebraska treasures gone because of siblings fighting. They held it together while mom and dad were alive, but as soon as mom and dad are gone, bam, the thing completely blows up. And there's some greed in all of this too. If Liz and Ole know that a company that's kicking off $1 million might be worth $5 to $10 million, and they know that the company can get sold and they can put huge cash in their pockets, they might push to get the company put on the market and sold and say to Lars and Marta, we don't give a rip that you might be out of a job. We want our money. This is stuff we see in farming operations quite a bit because the land is worth so much. The income isn't what everybody wants or what the non-farming siblings want. So they push to sell the land and they put one of their siblings out of business. So this is a massive problem. The worst thing you can do, Dad, Mom, is to treat all the kids the same, even though they're contributing differently to the business. So what are some of the solutions to all of this? So from a solution standpoint, the first fundamental that we like to see parents implement is to say stock will only be available in the hands of those that are employed by the company and they're key people in the company. They're actually performing. Next, make sure that each family member has outside employment before they join the company. And the reason that that's important is because you've got to get other people training your kids on how to be diligent, punctual, and willing to live under somebody else's leadership besides mom and dad, and develop the disciplines of working and not being just popped right into the family business and sensing a feeling of being entitled because they're blood of the family that started the company. The next thing you want to make sure is that there's a defined role that they fill. You just don't want to put them on the payroll and say, okay, we're going to find something for them to do. You build the org chart. You determine the people that you need to fill those positions in the org chart, and your child either fits or doesn't fit on the org chart. If they don't fit on the org chart, they don't come to work in the family business. When they come into the company, you want to make sure that you've laid down the fundamentals that they have to outwork non-family members. Because they're blood doesn't mean they get to take the easy path. You want them to outwork the other employees so that the entire team will respect them. If they don't respect your kids, sooner or later there's going to be problems. The last thing I want to mention here is you want to make sure that your kids are presentable as an adult. Now, what do I mean by that? A lot of parents are really lax on how the kids dress, how they groom their hair, how they carry on as a professional. And they let the kids come to work looking sloppy. And if you took, let's say mom and dad were in a nursing home, they still owned the company, but the company needed financing and they needed to walk into a bank, put the financials down on the table, and argue for $1 million line of credit. Ask yourself, if your child went into that bank, would they exude confidence? Would the lending committee look at your child and say, that person's sharp, they've got their act together, they're well put together, and we've got faith and trust in them that we can go ahead and do that line of credit? So many of the children that I see in businesses today, The parents have not held them to a standard so that they're presentable as an adult. So those are just some of the things that I think are some of the solutions. And I want to say one more thing before I get to the point of what do you do if it's too late? What if you've already made all these mistakes? Okay, so to bring this part to a close, this is basically what I'm saying. Dad, you don't want to do this. You don't want to put all the personal dynamic of the company as the foundation and then try to fit business over it, which is the big mistake I see happening in a lot of family businesses. You should establish the business fundamentals first. This is what you have to do to work here. These are the fundamentals you need to follow. This is where you need to be accountable. These are the business fundamentals. You either fit inside these business fundamentals or you don't. And if you flip it upside down, you're going to have trouble sooner or later. And then once you're gone, the business is not going to succeed. At some point in time, it's going to have to be sold off, and your legacy is going to be lost. Business fundamentals first, then you put the personal dynamic over it, and your children either fit within the business fundamentals or they don't. Now, what do you do if it's too late? Let's say you've made all these mistakes. What do you do to try to fix it? All right, the first thing you want to do is define excellence. And what I mean by that is you go through the entire org chart and figure out what sort of business fundamentals need to be in place to define excellence in the organization. Now, I find sometimes that can be really difficult without getting a third party involved, especially if there's family history that can create problems. And so it's important then to get some help and say, look, in this position, in the CFO position, how do we define excellence? In the COO position, how do we define excellence? And just go through the whole org chart and all the different divisions, regional sales, the service, on down the line. Get those fundamentals in place and then begin to do coaching by, again, I think bringing in a third party and having that third party develop a roadmap for each of your children to be able to get to a position to where they can improve their performance and get to a position where they are very valuable in the position that they're in and earn the respect of the rest of the team because of the way that they're performing. And that means you also have to put in place accountability. You're defining the performance measures that you want to have in place to make sure that the children recognize that they're going to either have to perform at that level or mom and dad are going to have to help you find another place to work. It's really, really key that you do that. Now, again, I say it may be impossible to do that on your own given the history. So bringing in an outside team to help you with that, I think, is real important. This is another one that's pretty tough, but the personal lifestyle of the child need to be good too. If they're out at bars all night, if they've got addiction problems, if they've got anger and temper problems, if they have a sense of envy or revenge in the way that they look at their other siblings, if they're carrying on in a way that is not productive and not useful for the family, and they aren't fitting within the business fundamentals that you want to see in place, you have to help them find someplace else, but they can't be on the payroll. It creates way too much toxicity and poison in the whole environment if you keep them on the payroll and you've got them creating drama that is undermining the morale of the organization. Another thing that I want to mention is getting them maybe into a business boot camp. Sometimes the only mentor that the children in the family business has had has been mom and dad. And there's a whole world out there that they need to learn about, and getting into a business boot camp to help them become smarter and wiser at running and operating companies and being able to do a better job of managing the finances, the sales, the service of an organization is really, really important. And they just can't rely on mom and dad. It's really important that you get them exposed to to organizations, associations, and leadership coaches and business coaches so that they can go through a business boot camp and up their competency in such a way that they are a very productive member of the business. Lastly, I want to mention this. No coddling. Parents will often make excuses for their children, and they'll coddle them and keep them on the payroll, try to keep them happy, make sure that they have money hitting the checkbook so the grandkids are taken care of, and you coddle the child to the point where they really don't grow as a professional. They really don't know what it's like to struggle and suffer to get ahead. Some of the best things that can happen to your children is for them to have adversity to break them out of laziness, entitlement, and a sense of, look, I don't have to apply myself because all my needs are met. If you coddle them by keeping them on the payroll, it's a real problem. But you got to do these things to set the stage for them to become adults and grow up and learn how to perform and be a key member of the team. To wind this up, if you're a parent and you're still worried about your children, you have great fear that they're going to fail, and that can be a big deal if you have grandkids because you don't want the grandkids to get hurt. And you definitely want to show love and fairness with family wealth. The way you take care of it is not through the company. It's through personal wealth, other assets, whether it's your income and you want to make gifts to them to help them out and support them. If you have other estate assets that when you pass away, you can direct those to the children. If that still is out of balance, you can always look at life insurance too to equal the estate so that everybody feels like mom and dad loved them. But don't use the business to create fairness within the family. It'll only create problems. When mom and dad are gone, the kids will start fighting. The people that are really responsible for the profits of the company are going to resent giving those profits to people that aren't active or those that are not key performers within the company. And if the fight gets big enough, your legacy and your business is going to get sold off. And we don't want to see that happen. We want Sven's Fish House to stay in business for multiple generations. Hopefully this has been helpful to you, and give this some real thought because we don't want dad to make those kinds of mistakes.